and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First up are the NICOM Service Awards. I know we have two people present, but I'm going to do the ones who are not first, if you don't mind, just to read them off. So, Greg Nielsen, for 25-year certificate. And this basically is the New York State Conference of Mayors and Municipal Officials who are honoring people who have served in municipal government for extensive periods. The second one is, I feel like this is the Academy Awards or something. Michael Foley, who has a 30-year certificate of public service in our police department, and Greg, of course, in our DPW. And I'll give the ones that I'm not handing out back to you guys. Okay.
Sure.
And if you guys want to come up, it's Maureen DePauli, 35-year certificate. That was impressive. I was talking to your husband about that. And Laura Coleman, a 30-year certificate. There you go.
You remember when this was the firehouse, right? That's how old you
No.
are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Okay. Next up, checks over $25,000. All right, let's see. We're almost to you guys. Good timing. Let's see. First one is A. Borelli Mechanical for HVAC plumbing and HVAC supplies, $77,431.81. Again, A. Borelli Mechanical, also HVAC plumbing and HVAC supplies. This is theater, $55,309.69. And Those Guys Landscaping for the Main Street Train Station project, $54,111.71. This was for Main Street Train Station project sidewalks, curb, and ADA upgrades. And Axon Enterprises, body cams annual payment. That's the maintenance of the body cams for the police department. $36,975.64. And for 2 Ford Explorer police vehicles, McGovern MHQ Inc., $92,791. Next up is a presentation by the Facilities Planning Committee. And I think we have the co-chairs here. Mike Aziz and Arthur Schaefer. I guess, if you don't mind, you got to sort of sit at the mic, only because to the extent there's anyone at home, they won't hear you otherwise.
And the recording. So
And not to mention the recording, that's a fair, even better point, and maybe a more diplomatic one. So I'm assuming from our prior brief conversations that you guys will do a presentation and then we can ask some questions, is that?
Yeah, that works. And we're joined by other members of the committee.
Great, thank you all for coming.
So I just had we had a few opening remarks and then happy to answer questions and have some discussion. So first wanted to thank the board and the mayor for forming this committee earlier this year. Thank Larry, Mayor Arlene, department leads for the valuable time and insights in the process thus far. I work as an architect doing long-range planning and for communities all around the country like ours. And from what I've experienced here, I think the staff and the board are as committed, visionary, and practical minded as one could ask for. And I think it bodes for a really successful process wherever this leads. Same goes for the committee members and all of the hard work they've done. So we're here to discuss the work of the committee over the last several months, picking up where the bond referendum left off and addressing the most pressing facility needs in the context of long-range capital planning and the betterment of the community. What we developed is a comprehensive project brief, which I think was distributed to everybody. It addresses those needs, and in short, it recommends that the village hire a professional consultant to lead the process, working closely with staff, our committee, and the community. The anticipated outcome of that would be a capital improvement plan that can serve the village for years to come. In addition to the project brief that we gave you, there is a list of 23 potential opportunity sites that could be used for development in the future, a corresponding map, and a summary of past studies and efforts. I also want to note that what we've heard from the community is that they very much want to be part of the process going forward, ensure that it's collaborative and transparent. So we've included in the brief recommendations and strategies for how we think that can be achieved. I just want to wrap up with a few thoughts, maybe some questions that have already come to mind in your review of the materials. First is, why do we need a consultant? In our review of the past documentation, there seems to be a major gap in the analysis, the needs analysis across village facilities. The firehouse has been studied by our count 7 times in recent past, but no formal studies have been conducted for DPW or the police department, though the police department was addressed in the last bond referendum, but not a detailed needs analysis as such. Comp plans neither quantify or prioritize needs. Just want to make that clear, though they were addressed. And the time and expertise required to do that analysis with best practices, standards, benchmarking from other communities like ours exceeds what our committee can offer and what we think staff has the ability to offer. Second, the feasibility studies, the architectural and engineering studies are complex and should be conducted by professionals. And third, we think that having plans developed by professionals will make the village's pursuit of grant funds in the future much more competitive. Second thing that came to mind was 6 to 9 months may seem like a long time and consequently expensive. And you might be asking, could we do it any faster? And I think yes, I think we could move faster. I think we could do that and still have meaningful public participation. We've identified 23 sites to begin looking at, all of which, I want to be clear, have some obstacles or challenges to overcome. We could look at narrowing that list down to the ones we think are most viable to start with. We didn't leave anything off the table at this point, but maybe we do try to prioritize it. Second, after touring all the facilities a couple weeks ago and speaking directly with department leads, we realized that some of the departments have much higher needs than others, and maybe you focused initially on the departments with the highest needs, which we think are emergency services, fire, police, DPW also. And third, we could think about how we address affordable housing, village-sponsored affordable housing, and think about the relationship with the housing committee and how much this facilities committee would ask the consultant to take on and how much could be done as a point of coordination with the housing committee. So happy to revisit the scope and fee assumptions in light of any of those with the board. And just the last point here, we understand that this recommendation is a major investment of the village resources, and it was a recommendation we made after careful consideration of all the options. But I don't think we should think of this as a plan that would sit on the shelf. A lot of municipalities would take a plan like this and update it periodically. What you see often is every 5 or so years, about the length it takes to implement a major project, that an update's done sometimes internally by staff, and every 10 years you get an opportunity to bring the community in a process like this. So you could think of this as something that works closely with the capital budget process that we all heard about today in the mayor's letter. It just becomes part of what we do, the way we do business. We consult the capital improvement plan as a way to help guide decision making. Anything else?
I don't know if you guys want to ask questions first. I have at least one to start with.
Well, I have one question. Just to start, how do you see the capital improvement plan combining with other studies and the updated master plan and things of that nature?
I think in our review, one of the recognitions was that there's a wealth of knowledge to work from, particularly all the work that went into the bond referendum and understanding of what the fire department's needs are, the challenges and opportunities presented by building on that site on Main Street. Like all of that is delivered to the consultant and used as a starting point for their work.
I think I might have misspoken. What I really mean is, is this an adjunct to our existing comprehensive plans? Do you think perhaps the comprehensive plan itself ought to be updated? As part of this, I know part of your discussion sort of, wasn't critical of the comprehensive plan, but it commented that it was very general and was not really specific enough.
It's the nature of comprehensive plans. They're high-level, strategic. They are not quantified typically in terms of needs and recommendations, nor are they prioritized. So this builds off of that. Certainly we're working at a point in time much later so we can reevaluate some of the goals in the context of what the village needs right now, but I think it builds on it. And I'm not aware of any sunset period for that plan if it needs to be updated at some point or if there's triggers that may occur on village population or other things. But I think it's a solid foundation to work from. And this just brings it to a point where it's going to be more useful and instructional for making decisions about where we spend our money on facilities.
In a sense, they inform each other.
Yeah.
And just as a last comment, as a practical member of the board, I think that there are priorities that need to be addressed a lot sooner than later. And I think the sooner that we can get to the firehouse and the police department, really the better. So hopefully that could be something that can either be put into fast lane or something, because we're already a year out from the bond referendum, and now we're talking another 6 to 9 months, $300,000 to $500,000 to get to a point where we're going to say we need a new firehouse.
I think, I absolutely agree. I think we'll do more than say we needed it. It will help understand where the best location is and how it fits within a larger picture of what the other investments there are. But I think there's a way to fast track it.
Great, thank you.
That was sort of my question, but I'll put a little twist on it. If we were hiring consultants, can we make specific, I know I could tell them to do anything, but in your opinion, since you've done this before, can we have them prioritize those two sites and in a sense, perhaps it involves moving the police department out of the space or figuring out how to reconfigure this space. Something's got to come out of Village Hall in order to make the rest of it work. And can we narrow down the 23 properties, because it's going to take some time to figure. Yeah, you've heard the opinion of village staff. When I sat there at the meeting with you, whether it's flooding or we store chemicals there next to the water tower, things like that, where you could probably nix. I'd let them look at it, but you could probably eliminate them pretty quickly and narrow down what would really be suitable for a location where you could put an emergency services building that might have police and fire department and whatever else we could do.
I mean, I think you'd start by working with the consultant and establishing what some of the goals are for the village. And one of the goals, I think, is finding a solution in a timely manner. You could be, if you said, we need to have, we desire to have a new building in 4 years, up and running, lights on. That alone could be a filter for dropping out a number of those sites because of the remediation or some of the other hurdles that need to be overcome. So that's one example. You can establish some other goals to help filter that list down to help you move more quickly.
And then maybe to your affordable housing question, well, I'm certainly in favor of it. I don't want to complicate what the consultants are doing. In other words, I don't want them trying to figure out how do they deal with our facilities and put affordable housing. I think what you were suggesting is, as we move forward and we decide what are suddenly open spaces, we can work with the housing committee or whatever.
I think the key is that we don't recommend a facility be located in a spot that ends up being ideal for affordable housing.
Okay, that's certainly worth considering.
It's about
I agree with
coordination.
that. I got it, okay. I know, David, you can have something you want to say about this. Oh, no, all right.
These guys are good.
Okay, I'll take it.
I'm sorry if I missed this in the report, but I was curious how you determined these 23 sites as being potential. It's amazing work the way you put it together in the math and the color coding and everything, but like just my kind of PTSD, like I saw Columbia on the site. I was in that Zoom meeting when they shut us down pretty hard, so I was like, eesh, that doesn't seem like that's really gonna go anywhere. Like, how did you come up with those?
Really, it was a group effort, David.
There was an open space committee.
Do me a favor, just come up to the mic.
So people
Sorry.
can hear you at home.
Yeah.
David Zweibel, Continent Street. There was an open space committee many years ago that put together every unused piece of land or a large portion of land in the village,
Regardless of ownership.
regardless of ownership. So this list was taken from that. It excluded certain areas that, there's no way we're going to get the whatever Nigerian embassy available. Originally, I took Columbia off that list, and I got word that the board would like to put it back on the list because it's, from my point of view and obviously from your point of view, what I've heard about negotiations with Columbia, that it's dead in the water. And universities don't sell land. That's one of their things. Now, if we have some sort of personal relationship with a majority of the Columbia board, maybe, but I don't think we do. So it was put on there. It does exist. I think Arthur's point is good. If, we hold everything up waiting to see whether we get something out of Columbia, we're another 3 years down the road. It would be best to confine looking at the other sites. I will also say that the list of 23 or whatever it is, there are some that are suitable for some things and others that are suitable for others. And if the list was reorganized in terms of what it might be most suitable for, it would become much clearer. Some are just pocket storage areas that we are desperate for storage areas anywhere. But they're not the top of the list to where we're going to move the DPW to. Okay?
To be clear, I wasn't nitpicking any one spot. It was more like, when I saw that on there, it made me wonder what was the process that came up with these 23 sites.
We very consciously entered into this wanting to eliminate any preconceptions. We want to be as open as possible to whatever options. Rather, you look at something, 2 years ago, its criteria are different.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just have a different question. I think what I would like to maybe see from this list, I think what you just said, was that something I was gonna ask, right? Like, for example, I think the 1 acre behind the Catholic church, right? You probably cannot put a firehouse there, I'm pretty sure they will not have that. But I guess I would like to see sort of why these what they were identified for, right? Not just like, what do you potentially see these spaces for? And then I think it would be difficult to spend a lot of money on a consultant who will eliminate things that, so I would like to see some work done on whether it is a possibility, right? Like what are the possibilities for negotiating with Columbia?
There were 8 more columns on that spreadsheet.
Yeah.
We just didn't include everything. that explains some of that information, which we can forward to you and answer those questions specifically.
Yeah, I think I would like to see that, but I think it's important also, not to, I think it's important to be really open, right? Because I agree with you, you don't know what 2 years ago, what's possible now, but also want to eliminate spending a lot of time and money chasing things down that are never going to happen, right? So it looks like Columbia is a possibility, then great, but if it looks like Columbia is a possibility, if 47 things happen, then to me, that's like chasing down a rabbit hole.
There are some of these sites on here that we won't be able to determine whether or not they're possible. The Columbia site is, those discussions are above our pay grade. So we can tell you it's highly unlikely, but until someone in a leadership position contacts them from the village, we were reluctant to take it off because we knew how well suited it would be to the facilities. The building, the site, location, everything. So that's why we kept it on. And to various degrees, that applies to many of these. So there's so many caveats to these. We can characterize this a little bit more for you in terms of what use might be preferred, what some of the challenges would be. I'm not sure it'll give you, there's no, I think I said there's no slam dunks here. There aren't 10 that just work.
But they could be kind of scored in terms of obstacles.
But doesn't it matter what facilities we tell you are the priorities? Like if we tell you we need the firehouse first, you could take this list and probably give me the top 5 or 6 that have the greatest likelihood of working.
Yeah, for firehouse alone, but then where it become firehouse plus police, firehouse
Yeah,
plus.
I get it.
Where does
Put
it end?
differently, we have to define what's the first thing we want you to, deal with.
Can I ask, in your minds, have you eliminated the existing location of the firehouse? Because you've got it as a to be relocated on your.
No, I think it should still be considered.
I would definitely throw the police for the fire as being important, because
Yeah.
we've been through interviews and we're told there was not enough locker room space for another female officer, which is upsetting to hear in your hiring process,
Yeah, no, we toured them with police chief 2 weeks ago, and you have to imagine it affects recruitment, retention of officers, overall operations.
So what would you identify as the next step, aside from providing us with the data in a way that Arlene just requested?
Well, as a next step, if we could receive any feedback on the scope of work that is in here, if you'd like it to be economized in any way, try to be specific with with that guidance. We could work with you to develop something that could be part of a RFP. We could provide more guidance on what we think the cost could be, a range of costs. I think those would be next steps.
And the consultant would consult on every aspect of this. In other words, if there was specific, like this is a huge, in a good way, it's a huge list of things. What areas of that would the consultant be on?
I think it would be a team of various different consultants, with the prime consultant leading sub-consultants. I think the prime is likely an architect or planner, or both, combination of both, with a team of engineers, perhaps someone to look at cost, unless the village would like to do that. But it's a multidisciplinary team.
Can I ask a third question? Do you remember how much was the costing part, the budgeting part of the last plan? Because I think we did that was at the end. Do you remember how much that cost?
I don't remember
Yeah.
specifically what that was. It wasn't a significant component out of the whole,
Yeah, I think we just
Contract
wanted to
that
get
was
some
spent.
number.
yeah, but it could have been 20 to 30,000.
And then would you leverage the work that was done? Because they spent a lot of time, right, talking to all the departments, right? How did they engineer the end of that plan to put in Village Hall and Parks and Rec? I'm assuming there was planning and.
There was, but
Yeah.
the scope of what they worked on was guided by the village staff and our estimation as to where things could go and what could fit where. So there were multiple departments that were moving around as part of that plan. And so we didn't ask a consultant what could fit in there. We basically determined this is the space we have to deal with, and this is what can go in those spaces. So we guided them more than they guided us.
I think that's, obviously, that's still gonna happen with a consultant in any
That's
case.
very valuable information. that we
yeah.
Absolutely leverage.
But I think, as you mentioned, what the consultants really bring that maybe we can't do in-house is defining what are the needs of the departments that we treat as priorities, whether that's, say, it's police and fire for the moment. And I don't mean the obvious needs, if you need another locker room or something, but what regulations apply to them? What requirements are there for the size of, or number of fire trucks in a community like this? I've had somebody ask me a question, why we need that number of fire trucks?
Yeah.
I think the answer is that it's in general defined by the size of the community, and the nature of the community. But it would be nice to have somebody who can do that legwork, and I don't think we have that in-house unless you tell me otherwise. Okay.
No, but I
yeah.
do think that specific question was asked. Didn't they, I sort of remember that discussion about, didn't those architects, wasn't there specialty firehouses?
So the previous study actually informed a lot of that in terms of the size and the amount of equipment and all of that. That was the 2014 study that was done by Mitchell Associates. So we didn't redo that.
Okay.
We used that as a starting point and moved forward from there.
But it doesn't mean it's not useful, it just
Yeah.
means it's gotta be updated.
It also,
I was gonna say, it doesn't
it
mean-
might be stale, 2014,
Exactly.
2020.
Yeah, no, we're not suggesting that that's not the case. It could be. So.
I think what you're hearing from, again, the sort of practical part of the board is what you may have considered an unbalanced approach to an investigation of what we need is because we've needed this firehouse to be done for a long time, and every study that gets done, nothing happens, and then a new study has to get done. And that's why there are 7 firehouse studies and none, not that, I know that there are none, about DPW, but, I think you were also part of the comprehensive plan committee. We did a lot of talking about the DPW and possible locations. So it wasn't like it's been ignored, and our most recent, plan does address that to some extent. But again, I think you guys are hearing what this part of the board, thinks is really compelling at this point.
I think all of these past studies would be given to the consultant. You may even want to do it as part of the solicitation process so they can form their pricing. They can look at it and see what's been done. It's all a matter of public record. And our committee would be available to help draft that RFP, to provide a question and answer session with potential bidders, tour the site, or really to help be there and support the board in bringing on the team that offers the best value. We are so close to New York City and all the great consultants that offers. I think we could really help with making sure that we provide the best value for the village.
I know that you touch base with at least one, maybe 2 consultants in nearby communities that have done work similar to what we're seeking. Is it worth having before we start working on the RFP, not that we're not going to do that, but is it worth having a conversation with them?
I think so. Yeah, there's an architect planner who lives in Ossining who did the most recent Ossining capital plan. And I've been in touch with him already. He's interested in speaking with the village, anyone who would be interested, about that process and how it's being implemented now, I think to some success.
You're on at least two committees, so I can't tell you to get it.
Right. Two other things. From a taxpayer transparency point of view, I think there are a couple of things that have been missing in all of these studies. One is benchmarking of what all of our departments want and what we want as compared to what everybody else is doing or not doing. So I think taxpayers would like to see that we're not spending, we're not buying Mercedes or Cadillacs or whatever, or we are. That's a question of where do we want to be as a community in terms of other communities and what they allocate for these same things that we are purchasing. The second thing that was not considered before I state that, I believe in the 2014 plan, the recommendation from that individual who did that, whose name I forget at the moment, was not to rebuild the fire hall on that location. And then it was decided in-house that would be, I believe the conclusion was it was financially cheaper to do it using the same site. But that was not done with an outside consultant. And more importantly, what was not considered was the available funding from Westchester County for affordable housing, which is many millions of dollars, which goes unattached into our capital funding. So we didn't consider if we converted the existing fire hall to a retail on ground floor and some affordable housing on the second floor, we would get the market value of that property as a cash infusion into the village coffers, which could then be used to pay for firehouse wherever we choose to make it. So the taxpayers, I think, are interested in making sure that we are considering, where the money is coming from, where extra money is coming from, e.g. affordable housing, and that we are balanced with what we want compared to what we feel we can afford in comparison to other villages.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? So maybe, go ahead. Do you want to say something? I was just going to suggest that maybe you guys set up a time that we could talk with Larry, and if there's one, just more than one.
Tops, right?
Yeah, I'll bow out if you want, but somebody's got to brief me carefully.
Nobody wants that.
So anybody else here can volunteer, but you two have to be available to have the follow-up conversation. And if you want to reach out to that consultant,
Yes.
maybe we can combine that meeting and have a conversation.
Yeah.
And just so that you folks can do it, we could invite it back to a work session or something, just to follow up.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, thanks to everybody on
Yeah,
both
thank you to
committees.
the committee.
Okay, correspondence. I'm going to start with the one that's not on the list. And I'm sorry, Larry Ogradnik's not here because he had forwarded it to us. This is Connie Honeycutt, who is a resident on South Ecker Street, and points out that they're limited with parking, and they've gotten, $100 in tickets, and they would have much preferred to pay upfront for a guest permit if we had that concept. They sent along something that is done in Philadelphia that has a similar concept. It's a booklet of 5 visitor day passes for a $35 fee, and she is proposing that we formally consider this solution in our village. Larry and I had both initially thought there might be a way to do this very easily, which is borrowing something they used to do informally, which was allowing somebody to park in village lot across from the Main Street School, but it doesn't look like we can do that. Do you want to, since I'm using the conversation we've had earlier just to shorten the discussion about that, but you indicated to me that you need to take a look at the state regulations to see if we can actually do something like allowing, temporary passes to people. So,
Yeah. No, I can look into that if the board's interested in pursuing this type of permit. That's a little bit complicated because of the permitting system that is enabled by the state legislation. So we would have to make sure that it's okay to issue permits to people who aren't residents,
got it.
which is
So-
essentially what we're being asked.
It's worth it to me to at least know the answer to that question. Before I did anything else beyond that, I want the community to weigh in because you have a lot of residents saying, why would I want to let guests come in? Even if I'm getting a little bit of cash, I have enough problems trying to find a parking spot. So, and I'm not assuming I'm going to hear that. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, would it be, and I guess that conceptually, would it be it would really be the resident getting permits, right? It would be like the resident, because it wouldn't be the outsiders getting permit, it would be the resident getting permits that would allow their visitors. It's almost like guest passes.
I understand.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Okay, the next piece of correspondence that is not in here. We got a letter from someone who lives near the Field Point lot, and since I don't think they asked, actually maybe it's going on future board, but they're concerned with what's happening in the Field Point lot. You will see that the village put out an email today that I will briefly summarize in case someone didn't see that email, but bottom line is we are expanding the Field Point lot, we are allowing additional chargers to go in. We are installing, I'll call them dark sky lights, meaning they point downward, and the trees that have been removed will be replaced with a new planting scheme. So I think the end result will be much nicer. In addition, a good portion of the cost of this is being underwritten by a nearby developer because they had to co-opt some existing parking spaces. I think the planning board required them to find new parking spots for the folks in this area. And Westchester County has issued, or is about to issue a grant, I think they're working on pricing things out, that will cover the electric chargers. So I believe the only thing the village is paying for are the light fixtures, and they're not even paying for the labor for that, according to Ed.
Right, and a small strip of pavement down the middle that we've had to repave for many years now.
Got it. Okay. All right. Now let's see if I can go through the actual correspondence. Kevin Gallagher asked that we consider moving the September 11th remembrance from morning to early evening, let's say 6 p.m. He points out we benefit from seeing the towers of light from the park at that time. And I think it would also let people who are at work or at school, students, join us. I honestly don't have any objection to that. I think it's probably a good idea. I don't know if anyone else does, but if we don't.
I know the things that, and I don't feel this way at all, but if anyone felt that it should be around the same time as that we're commemorating it, I would understand that argument. But that wouldn't bother me, I'd rather.
Well, I think it doesn't necessarily preclude a ringing of the bells at
That's true
at the
also.
time.
It's not right, it's not either or, it could be both.
Yeah, I also think, haven't attended that ceremony, I do think Kevin Gallagher has a very compelling story about what happened. And I think it would be great for people to hear that, right? And it is difficult, but it's a normal school day, usually kids have to go to school, so.
So what do we have to do that other than tell you?
Pretty much.
All right, we did it.
All right.
Okay. Next up is a letter from Kylie Blackman. Kindly forward copies of all documents from, that must be the United States Humane Society, abbreviated PETA, et cetera, that refer to their support of the deer killing program that Irvington is planning. And here is a copy of a letter from Dr. Harold Hubble. As I explained in previous meetings, I did reach out to Dr. Hubble and he never responded to me. With regard to copies of documents from the Humane Society and PETA that support the deer killing program, there are none. What I said in the meeting was that I had spoken to them, and I think there was at least one trustee on each call that I did with the local experts, and what they said was they believed that we were being thoughtful in considering all of the various options. They didn't endorse killing, although I think there was one communication that kind of surprised me, that was, if you're gonna go with bow hunting, you should use a rifle, which we're not in a position to do because of the location. So I understand the sentiment of Ms. Blackman, but here's another one from Kylie Blackman. Near the end of the deer portion of the 9/16 meeting, Mayor Siegel added a brief passing reference to traffic, implying deer are another reason Irvington is proceeding with your slaughter program. The overwhelming majority of auto accidents are due to speeding, drunk driving, drowsy driving, and distracted driving. Deer aren't anywhere near the top or major part of those lists. I don't know that with absolute certainty, but I will stipulate that is accurate in these circumstances. We are not doing this primarily because of deer interaction with automobiles, although I personally have had a deer leap in front of my car and literally scrape the front hood on Cyrus Field. That was not my motivation. My primary motivation was the condition of the woods and the flooding that results if those woods deteriorate any further. Let's see, Beth Ryan is submitting her resignation as Irvington Theater Commissioner, effective immediately. And, you know, we sent her a thank you note, and I guess we have to formally accept this at some
It's on
point.
the agenda, isn't it?
Is it? Okay, thank
Yeah, I
you.
believe so.
I think it's on the
Okay,
agenda.
sorry. You're right, I have appointment. Oh, yes, I do. No.
No?
Resignation of Mark.
I knew about it from the theater commission.
That's okay, we can
Completing
do-
my meetings.
Do you want me, can I throw it
You can do it right now.
All right, motion to accept the resignation of Beth Ryan from the Theater Commission. Anybody want to second that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I still maintain that voting on people resigning is the.
It's, yeah, well, voting on the acceptance, you're right.
Yes,
You're
that's what I
absolutely right. Yes, it is not compulsory service, I stipulate to that also. Let's see, dear Mayor Siegel, this is from Susan Puchier, I think, yes, Puchier. I'm writing to commend the staff at Scenic Hudson Park. They tirelessly work paying attention to all areas and details. The staff is courteous, productive, and kind. Please acknowledge their efforts often as they maintain this gem in Irvington. Peter Agavino notified us of loose wires on Main Street. The DPW has contacted the utilities. Interestingly enough, Mr. Agavino formerly worked as a liaison for Con Ed, so we know who to contact if we're, I think in adjoining villages, but we've now identified an expert in case we need some help in the future. I'm assuming that this is still in the works, or I haven't.
Yeah, it's
walked
an
up and
ongoing
down that.
process,
Okay.
but yeah, I haven't followed up since DPW reached out.
Okay. Let's see, and I think this is, I'm starting Matheson Park correspondence here, and this one is from Martha Schwartz. To the Board of Trustees, we fully support Irvington's inclusive policy regarding Matheson Park, as did Irvington's voters. We have been walking in the park weekly for years, didn't notice any change since the policy went into effect. We appreciate our good fortune of this in Scenic Hudson. Barry Graubauer,
Hey, John?
Yeah.
Do you think we could have stipulated our meeting names that we presented?
Fine.
We want to see it kind of in the record. It'd be good
Yes,
to see
we
people
can.
Supporting.
we absolutely
yeah,
can.
right.
I will cut it to how about a sentence each?
Yeah.
This one is from Barry Grabart. He's a 2-decade resident of Irvington, is in favor of keeping the park open. Let's see, Linda Vertel is a resident, I think, of Terrytown, and also compared this to Terrytown's open park and is in favor of keeping the park open. Tom Thacker, As someone who's lived 2 blocks away from the park for 30 years, I love the park is now being enjoyed by Irvington residents and non-residents alike. I urge the board to keep the park open to all. Charlotte Binns, I'd like to add my voice in support of keeping Matheson Park open and welcome. And I think these emails started partly because of a comment was made about the cleanliness of the park and that maybe we should keep it open to others. So we're not planning on making a change. And this is from Cameron Saliani. Let's see. There may be isolated instances of rule breaking or littering. They're unfortunate, but they don't define the experience at Matheson Park. We should focus on how the park is flourishing due to more consistent engagement by residents and non-residents alike. Let's continue to improve and protect this valuable community resource while maintaining its spirit of openness and inclusion. Harry Lang writes to express this. Oh, now we're switching to leash dogs in the park. All of the correspondence that the board has received on this subject is going to be forwarded to the Recreation and Parks Committee, which is holding a hearing Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Even those that didn't make the deadline to get into this meeting, we will forward to them, so that they'll be considered as part of that hearing. And then the board will sit down with our package, just hear what they've discussed and heard. Harry Yang is writing to express support for, well, he's writing it to express support for creation of a dog park at Matheson Park, and then argues why he's in favor of the dog park. That is not something we're considering at this time. The reason we started discussing opening Matheson Park to dog walking is because of the sheer cost of creating a dog park, which when it was roughly priced out was about $650,000. And in my mind, that was a lot. And it wasn't just because of the dogs, it's because you have to make it ADA compliant and you have other engineering issues to make it accessible in general. Michael Hanna, thank you for sharing the proposed rules regarding dogs being allowed to enter Matheson Park. I support these sensible rules and encourage their implementation this spring, if not sooner. Hopefully dogs will displace geese and geese poop to somewhere else less problematic. We're all curious about that possibility. William Searle, my wife and I support allowing dog walking in Matheson Park. Since we can't attend the meeting, I wanted to send this note. Let's see. Anya Abrams, I cannot attend the meeting, so I'm ready to express my support of introducing leash dogs to Matheson Park. Dogs are an important part of our community, and dog-friendly environment is essential to attracting new and younger residents to Irvington. And again, believing it might actually decrease the number of geese. The O'Connor, I assume that's the O'Connor family in Irvington, were opposed to allowing dogs in the park. If dogs could, they would abide by the rules. People will not abide by the rules. Potential of parents bringing their children to scenic park with their bikes and skateboards is a distinct scenario. And there's a concern expressed for seniors, trying to avoid collisions with, I assume that's the bicycles, skateboards, and hovers, as well as dogs. Elizabeth Troop, I think the proposed rules are reasonable and protective of dogs, dog lovers, and even those who do not appreciate dogs. I find myself having to go to Dobbs Ferry Park when I want to walk my dog by the water, and that's unfortunate because I prefer to stay in Irvington. Lauren Cooper, who lived in Irvington for 10 years and have only entered Matheson Park about 5 times because of the no dogs rule. Please open the park to dogs so we can enjoy it too. Claudia Smith, I'm writing to express my strong support for adopting a new policy to allow licensed dogs on leash in Matheson Park. David Zweibel, who was kind enough to list all the rules in his letter. 30-year resident and dog owner, I'm writing to voice my strong support for the proposed changes suggested by you for rules for leash dogs in Madison Park. And references my letter of September 26th. Points out there's a large number of families with dogs in their households. And suggests extending the rules to scenic and memorial as well. There are different issues with those just because of the ballparks, but we're going to deal with one thing at a time, and that's Matheson. And can't resist this one. In our village's case, what's good for the gander may in fact be very good for our geese problem. Nicely done. Elaine Katz, also 30-year resident. These rules are simple and long overdue guidelines where our village park can be used by the full family of all village households, including their dogs. Also suggests extending the rules to the other parks. Please implement the rule changes just as you have suggested. I hope this step forward is a step toward a dog park in Madison Park. Okay. Betty Krulik. We have limited access to public spaces where we can walk our dogs and engage with fellow dog owners. This not only impacts our ability to exercise our pets, but hinders the socialization of our dogs. It can occur through a supportive dog owner community. By allowing dogs in Madison, we can foster a more inclusive environment that benefits all residents. And references the rules and says, I believe with these measures in place, Madison can serve as a shared space that enhances the quality of life for all Irvington residents. I don't have the list in front of me, I'm getting near the end. Gloria Leahy, to whom it may concern. I'm unable to attend the RPAC hearing. Some of my friends have dogs and they've been disappointed when I've invited them to the park for picnics and had to tell them to leave their dogs home. She's also suggesting that more people, dog walkers, would come to the park during the week when it's pretty quiet and empty. Maria Sforza suggests that that it should be a dog park enclosed area, not a dog walk. Okay, I think that is the end of correspondence. Any public comment? Take that as a no. There will be another public comment session. We are now doing the consent agenda.
Can I just say one thing? Sure. So Greg, the theater manager, asked me to mention that, so you'll notice the appointment of part-time personnel for the visit. That's an as-needed appointment, and the costs are covered by the people who rent the theater.
Got it.
So in other words, they're, as part of their rental fee, they have to agree to hire certain positions. The theater provides it, and then they pay it. So I guess we are the pass-through on that, but the money doesn't come out of the village.
Got it.
Yeah.
And Larry, I think I had asked a question at one point. We appointed somebody to the tree committee, and I just couldn't remember whether someone had resigned or been removed, because if so, just take a look at the number of people we have as to whether we have to, rationalize that against the actual number of the committee.
I think it's a pretty small number.
It is, it may be 5, and I think that's to go to 6. Yeah, well, it is now. I've been adding them as I can, since they have a lot of, field work to do. Okay, do I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
You're up.
I'm making a motion, sorry, do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Too much correspondence. Okay. All right, next on the agenda is the presentation by BKR9 LLC /Pharma Real Estate Development regarding the proposed development of 76 North Brad Way, an application of coverage and FAR public benefit bonus. I have received a couple of pieces of correspondence on this subject, so maybe I should put this, tell you, you know what, I'll wait until after you're done and then I will just sort of summarize. Unless you folks disagree, I think most likely we're listening and then we can take it away to consider what we want to do. You should spare it.
Just give it a minute till they're logged in.
Sure. Actually, if they're gonna do that. It's not sure. Yeah. Larry, while they're logging in, can you open this? Thanks.
There you are, okay.
I don't feel mine, just. Thanks. It's too, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great, thanks.
Here, here too, okay.
You ready?
Good evening, Catherine Zelantis from Silverberg Zelantis. I represent the applicant. With me tonight is the applicant's representative from Varma Development, Rocco Varma. Sitting next to him is Peter Gregory from DTS Provident, and then Peter Gato from Peter Gato Architects. So Varma Development is proposing to redevelop 76 North Broadway, and the development contemplates retaining the existing residential structure on the site and constructing 2 new buildings, and that's shown in this site plan. You can see the existing residential building and the 2 proposed new buildings. And with that development, Varma Development is proposing to construct 57 rental units and a school. The development addresses a pressing need in this community in Westchester County in general by providing an early childhood education facility as well as rental units, and including affordable and moderate income units. This development proposes 6 affordable units and 5 moderate income units. The property is in the MFO district, and in this district it allows for a bonus for FAR and coverage for moderate income units, which this development is already applying for and providing to comply with that density coverage and FAR allowance. This MFO district also allows that if the development, quote, furthers an important public benefit, this board has the discretion to grant an additional up to 5% coverage and FAR allowance. And this project that we're contemplating today, the public benefit here is in and of itself retaining the existing house, because the retention of the house comes at a very high cost. To retain the existing house, it requires that the developer give up right off the bat 5 to 6% of coverage before one brick of new development is laid down on the site. Also, we have to give up the ideal location for a new building. The best location, if you were to look at this site from a financial perspective and a planning perspective, would be to put a new building where the existing building is. But we can't do that, obviously, if the project proposes to retain the existing building. And there's significant increased cost, construction and development costs by retaining the existing building, because you have to create this long access. The existing building is at the far end of the site, so you have to create this long access to get to the existing building that contemplates very expensive retaining walls.
I just want to know, from your perspective, do you want us to save all questions till the end, or if it's relevant to something you're saying, do you want to hear it so you can address it at that point?
Sure, however, if you want to
I'm
ask,
giving you the option. You can take whatever you like, if it's easier for you to run through your whole presentation, that's fine.
I'll take the questions now.
Okay. This is from correspondence that would have come up at our next meeting. One of them was, with regard to the hardship of preserving the mansion, if you could have removed the mansion, that half of it is inside the rear setback. So if you knocked it down, you'd need a variance to put a new building in the same spot. Now, I don't know whether, I haven't done the research to know if that's true or not true, but that, if it is true, that sort of puts into question.
Well, you could see,
Maintaining it.
that pink magenta line
Yeah.
is the setback line. So a portion of the new building can certainly fit.
There's plenty of room in this corner to have a new building.
In other words, if the mansion were gone, you'd be able to push the same volume inside without using the setback.
Yeah, we have,
Okay.
right, we would comply, of course, we'd have to comply to that setback, but you can see the magenta line is the setback, and you'd push it so it's complying with the setback line. So,
Can you just tell me how many one-bedrooms and two-bedrooms you're anticipating
1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms.
out of the 57 units that you're discussing?
Yeah, it's roughly 50-50.
Okay. Mhm.
So the code does allow an allowance for the building itself, about 6,000 square feet, but we'll go through and show you a plan, and the plan is in our packet, that it actually takes about over 13,000 square feet of coverage to access the site. So essentially, even though there is this allowance and that the code grants of 6,000 square feet, any developer is 8,000 to 9,000 square feet in the hole, going right into the project, and before you could put 1 square foot of new development down. But that's not the only public benefit that the developer is proposing here. We're also proposing to create, as you can see in this corner of the site, a public amenity, and it's right at the corner of Broadway and Strawberry Lane. This would be public access, and it wouldn't just be that circle area, it'd be that whole essentially corner of the site that's landscaped, and this was premised because we heard during the presentation at the planning board how people do go on the site and walk their dogs on the site, and how there is no park in the immediate neighborhood, and that they'd be giving up this ability, even though it's technically a trespass on the site, that they'd be giving up this ability to go onto the site if it was privately developed. So we thought, okay, let's create a legal access to the neighborhood where people can go out and walk their dog, walk around the site. And we're also proposing a sidewalk, a partial sidewalk, and this is something the planning board has pressed on.
And is that inside the wall or outside the wall?
That's-
In other words, I think what I'm looking at is a break in the wall, and then the sidewalk is.
So if you can go to the other picture, the overall site plan that shows the, yeah, so the sidewalk
Yeah,
is,
I'm not, that I understood. My question was, do you have to move the stone wall?
so originally we were proposing a sidewalk along Broadway,
Yeah.
but that would have required removal of the stone wall. And the planning board indicated that's not something that they found favorable. So we looked at other options to create a potential public benefit. And we're creating an interior sidewalk wholly on the property, that can be used both by the residents of the building to afford access down to Broadway, but also for the residents that live and use Strawberry Lane so that they're not walking in the street. They can go onto the sidewalk and then get to the public amenity. And the benefit of this is that it would be constructed by Varma and maintained by the property owner going forward. So it would be no cost to the village. This is not something that we contemplate turning over to the village and the village would have to incur the cost of, or its DPW would have to clean the park. That's not being contemplated here. It would be wholly maintained by the property owner going forward. So, we ask that you consider what we're proposing as a public benefit in the context of also a development plan that creates affordable housing, moderate income units, creates a school, which there's a need for that, early childhood development center. There's always a need for that in Westchester County, but retains the existing building. And, again, to retain the existing building, you're talking about 13,000 square feet of coverage that has to be created when only you're afforded about 6,000 allowance square feet of coverage. And if we could just, Peter Gregory can go through that plan.
A couple of questions about the hatched lines that I'm seeing on the southern end.
Sure.
One set of hatched lines is clearly a crosswalk across Broadway. Have you been in touch with DOT at all about whether the state's going to allow a crosswalk there? That second set of hatched lines right there where the arrow is now, is that a closed-off area of Strawberry Lane that's going
So-
to narrow access to Strawberry Lane?
No, it
Or is
isn't.
it something that's going to still?
So currently, there's asphalt encroaching on that corner of the property, even though the Strawberry Lane itself, the mapped road, ends at the property line. There's no portion of the mapped road on the property. There is that corner of asphalt encroachment that people are using to essentially make a right turn. We are not proposing to take that up. I think we're proposing to stripe it to create some kind of connection to a proposed crosswalk that we would need DOT approval for, but it would be Varma Development incurring the cost to create that crosswalk across Broadway.
Just think about the continuity of the safe passage as you come down the sidewalk, where you sort of pop into the hole here in the corner, the gate, then you coming out, of course, you just go out to the street, at least some definition of striped area. And this striped area, Strawberry Lane is not a village road, so we can stripe that, it can be striped somehow. It's agreeable, but just to have a safer connection, because there's no crosswalk there right now. But there isn't, obviously, need to connect to the sidewalk, which is on the western side of the street.
Just a couple of other comments or questions. One, I appreciate that you're supplying the minimum number of capital A affordable units, and that you're taking advantage of the coverage bonus to use workforce units. I would ask you to consider, to get the other additional coverage, to consider adding more workforce units to your project, as opposed to a park where you'll be putting in, I just did a rough calculation based on your number of 1-bedrooms and 2-bedrooms, you're going to be putting in between $500,000 and $600,000 into our rec fund, which will allow the village to determine where we might want to put a park or have some type of public access. And I don't think I'm speaking yet for the rest of the board, but I think a positive community contribution would be more workforce units in your project.
I would agree with that.
I think that's all the questions and comments I have.
So what happens, sorry, because I'm really involved in the whole, the state is redoing Broadway. It's a current project that's going on right now. It pays things up to Sleepy Hollow. So what if the state finds that the crosswalk there are being incompatible with their new design?
We would definitely need approval from DOT, and they're in the process of reviewing our proposed plans, and we would have to get approval from them.
I mean, that would effectively result in just people on Strawberry Lane or in that immediate area being able to use the park that you're installing, if you were not able to get that approval.
What I'm saying is you're assuming that the state's going to approve a crosswalk there, and I'm saying that I know that, we've been intimately involved for the last 2 years. They have a very elaborate plan that they've presented for redeveloping Broadway, including changing pretty much everything, installing a sidewalk and things like that. And I'm not comfortable that they're gonna say yes to something like this, considering how much money, time, and effort they're putting into a new plan. So I was asking, what's Plan B? So if the state says, no, because we're gonna have this, and this, you can't have a crosswalk here, then what do you do?
So, Rocco Varma from Varma Development. Thank you again for the board for meeting and listening. We have had a few conversations with DOT where they have expressed to us conversations with Village of Irvington as well, and their plans in place, which are not defined or 100% guaranteed in essence. But they have stated that they do intend to create more sidewalks in places. And they're looking to incorporate this plan into their future development, if and when that was to occur. What that means is when we do present our plan for ingress, egress, crosswalks and everything, that will be taken into account. Perhaps the crosswalk suggested at this location may not be the best option for them, may or may not be. Wherever they do in future do place, we feel or are confident that the approach to this park space that we are creating is at the very least servicing Strawberry Lane residents, which are currently using the residence as anyways. But we do expect some sort of interconnection in the future, which is again not in our control, but it's the best of our ability to what we can deliver.
Yeah, I have a different question. I guess following up on Larry's question, I guess my question is, did you consider additional affordable units as a way to increase as an alternative to this?
Thank you, and this is a valid question, and we did, and one of the reasons we were not able to get to that point is because of the cost of maintaining everything alongside this project. This building, this site is on a complete elevation, so we actually have to bring, and then the access on Broadway and all other factors that result and did certainly extend. That was a conversation that we had about extending moderate income, number of residents that we could actually have. And I think the number that we came back to was one essentially that we could afford to further align towards that. And quite honestly, that is still on the table. It's something that we can actually consider. And we are not sure what is more beneficial to the residents and to the village. A park amenity, more affordable housing, childcare, all those components are obviously important elements, but we are open to suggestions.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm speaking personally, although I think I'm probably going to capture the sentiment of the board. I think it's probably more affordable housing only because, as my fellow board member here points out, you don't know with certainty that anything beyond that immediate Strawberry Lane area will be able to use the park amenity that you put in. I mean, it's a lovely idea, and be nice to have it, but I think more important to us is the affordable housing.
There's no affordable housing there now, so just by the fact that the project is here.
Not arguing that. But you're asking for more coverage and more FAR.
One of the questions that stands, and we are unclear because it's not clear in the new zoning code, is maintaining the residents a vital aspect for the village and the residents. And we are considerate of that because it is a beautiful structure. We understand that. There is a history attached behind it. It's not historical, but we want to understand because we want to be part of the community for a long term. It's not something we're coming in and just building and ejecting. So we want to hear from the board of trustees and the planning board and the residents.
Well, I'll speak just from my end. I think I'm the only one who was on the board when the zoning was done. And I don't really know from coverage in FAR that much. I know what we thought was important.
Sure.
And we attempted to put into this new zoning what we thought was important, which was giving we thought that any developer who came in would want to take the maximum advantage of whatever bonuses we were able to offer. So we offered bonuses for maintenance of historical property. We offered bonuses for senior housing, capital A affordable housing, and small A affordable housing. Those are the things that we wanted to see in addition to multifamily housing, which is why we made it into a multifamily housing zone. So, I mean, I'm speaking for myself, and these board members did not, pass that zoning, but I think they agree in general that those are our priorities when we made this new zoning.
I mean, in theory, that makes sense about trying to provide a bonus for retaining the house, but in reality, it's not a bonus to retain the house. It comes at a high cost, and we could just.
Right, I understand that you're saying that, and again, I don't really understand that, I let Mary Ann do the numbers.
Show the plan.
Tell us what the real numbers are. But I do understand that, you would have other costs if you had to build new. Some of the costs which you're explaining you have to use now for driveways and retaining walls, you would have to do even if you tore down the mansion and built new.
No,
So
we
that is the difference, that you're absolutely correct. That's the roadway that you are seeing extended at the present moment is the roadway we have to create exclusively to access the historical building, because we had to actually remove the gravel pathway that currently exists because it's considered coverage. So we have to remove that. It was, as it presently stands, it's a non-service building in essence, because a fire truck can't actually access that building because of certain conditions, even though that's a pre-existing condition. The roadways, doesn't have access to it. So bringing this residence to the standards for current habitual conditions and also to access it creates the overage that we did not expect.
And to legalize it internally for residents is another cost as well. This whole road is the tow line to accommodate the fire and emergency access. Because it's a hill, you have drainage, you have retaining wall, it's a tremendous amount of effort and work and money just to keep it up there. And we did attempt to keep the gravel driveway, but my board and the town and such, so it was, besides coverage, wouldn't suffice. So the fact that the house, this is a flat piece of land sitting there, drive up to it, but because where it is, because what's happening, all these other costs are in there.
And quite honestly, that is the most favorable location because of the elevation. That is the only base at the second or third level that you do actually get water use. That was the selling point. We don't get that in the current conditions that we have as it's laid.
Peter Gregory with DTS Provident. I think what we should also just mention here is that, the current access to the site is off of Strawberry Lane. And in attempting to keep the driveway access up to the house, we found that it wasn't suitable for the emergency vehicles for the fire truck. Too steep, very narrow. So in order to maintain that access up to that, we had to create that access driveway on the northern side of the property and have the ability for the fire truck to actually set up and be able to turn around and not back out of the property. He could back up, turn around, and pull head first out. In addition to the coverage associated with that driveway and its retaining walls, we have to transition the grade from the courtyard between the two new buildings up to the rear porch on the historical building. And that transition is about 20 to 25 feet. So there are additional retaining walls in that location, which are going to create coverage, but will allow us to transition the grade from the main entrance of the new buildings to the existing rear porch and patio of the historic building. So in order just to reuse that building, we are going to incur additional coverages and costs to transition up the site and to access to the rear of the property.
I guess you've heard what we're interested in, and perhaps we should take an opportunity at some point, not at this meeting, but to talk with council, whether that's in a work session or a robust council session, so that you're not going to get an answer. I'm not sure you were expecting an answer at this meeting, but I think we understand what you're seeking. You understand that we're more interested in the housing aspects, the affordable housing aspects, than we are necessarily in what you've offered. But we should have the opportunity to sort of deliberate and discuss with our council. I think would be most helpful for us. And I won't be surprised if we get a few more letters on this subject matter.
Do we want to allow public comment that's referring to this now, as opposed to making people wait until the end of the proposal?
Well, the only question is whether while they're here, is it worth letting a few people speak? They have the opportunity later. And actually, this meeting's going to go pretty quick, I think, the rest of it. So is everybody here? Who here is here because of this discussion? Okay. Okay, got it, everybody. Almost everybody. We're not making a decision at this point. If you feel compelled to get up and speak, you've heard where we're coming from. There will be a public comment. It's probably going to take 15, 20 minutes where we normally come to it. Honestly, why don't we take a few minutes if you really are compelled to speak? But I would very much appreciate it if you don't repeat yourselves. We get the idea, what you're concerned about, and we have received correspondence. And if you have specific items, happy to get them in further correspondence in the next. Yeah, and there's, of course, the usual 3-minute limit. So who wants to speak immediately?
Also, Mr. Mayor, if we could just limit comments to really just this issue about application
Yes,
of,
that's fair.
because we're still in front of the planning board.
Yeah, and we're also not
discussed-
responsible for the decision, so the planning board is. So the only thing we're looking at is, have they provided a public benefit, or are they offering a public benefit that would allow us to even consider additional coverage and the FAR bonus. So does anybody want to say something with all those rules in place?
I'll be real brief and speak to what was said earlier.
Sorry,
I'm Michael
just for the
Hanna.
record.
Yep,
Thank you.
I'm getting there, at Buckout Street. And I appreciate the work of the board, the prior board with the zoning change. I thought it was very important. You were a diligent board, and I appreciate the result. And I hope by now that there will be something that comes to fruition. And I remain in favor of what was expressed by various board members here in terms of affordable and workforce housing as being something to continue to seek as part of any development. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Anybody else?
David Swibel, just a couple of quick comments. One, on the Route 9 plan, if that goes through, as I understand the plan, there would be a sidewalk created along the east end of Broadway the entire distance, which then any proposed park that they would be building or access to the public would be from that sidewalk. It wouldn't be isolated to Strawberry Lane residents. And I would suspect that there's going to be a lot of traffic on that sidewalk because that's the way people get to school from the entire east side of Broadway. They walk, they have to cross the street and then cross the street again. So just for that. And then, the big elephant in this room here, I have to address that. We're calling this the historical building. And I know that we put a benefit in the zoning for keeping the historical building. We've now seen two proposals, this proposal and the previous one. And in order to maximize their development site, both of them basically have created, two large square block buildings in front of the historical building, which, from a Irvington resident's point of view, basically, when you look up that hill driving by, or sit in this nice little park, if it's created or not, you're going to be seeing those buildings. You're not going to be seeing this.
Yeah, but that's a planning board issue. That's not.
Right. Well, what I would suggest that is it possible for them to present a plan that includes eliminating the historical building and thereby gaining the footage that they need and creating a sort of more desirable architectural statement from the buildings rather than these two square block concepts?
That's certainly up to them, but to your point, I think it would be worth saying that to the planning board.
Right, yeah.
Because we don't have the power to do something about that, nor should we at this point.
Exactly. But it might sway the opinion of the village residents as to what they're looking at and getting something that is more reasonable to look at from the street rather than this old building poking up behind. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
You have one online,
Oh,
when you're ready.
all right.
When you're ready.
Yeah, and then we'll do the one online.
Hi, it's Peter McCallick from Strawberry Lane. I think just while that's up, my question would be, even if the mansion were demolished and the new building were put in that little pocket within, that's not in the setback, wouldn't you still need a driveway, more or less like the one that we're looking at?
I don't know, but again, that's planning board, that's not us.
No, I guess,
Yeah.
so again, the extra cost that they're saying is associated with preserving the mansion is really the extra cost associated with just simply getting any traffic to the back of an awkwardly shaped lot. That's all I'm suggesting. And then there was also, I think, just want to clarify one thing about that little flare on the northern end of Strawberry Lane. I guess the statement was that that was an encroachment of the road onto the Maxon property. It's actually the other way around. In the early 60s, when Timex owned that property, they actually voluntarily, in fact, sought out permission from the planning board to pull back the property line, not the actual property line, but the stone wall there for safety reasons. Right, they had more traffic going up there. They needed that flare so they could fit 2 lanes of traffic. And anybody who's gone up and down that road would be able to tell you that mixing pedestrians in that tiny little 350 square foot sliver and traffic seems like a dangerous proposition.
Again, we're not doing traffic. You guys gotta stick to the specific issue.
Okay, so the last point here is that I think what they're asking for, that 5% bump up in coverage, it sounds like there's going to be maybe some negotiation about numbers of affordable units in exchange for that bump up in coverage, and that's completely fair. I just wanted to point out that 5%, though it doesn't really sound like a whole lot, is actually it's quite a bit of space by Irvington standards. If you just compare that property to all of the other multifamily complexes in the village, it is way on the higher end. So basically, any multifamily, just in the multifamily zone, has a 10% to 18% coverage max. Here, they're at 35%. So they already have twice as much coverage as virtually every other multifamily complex in the village.
Well, as I understand this, and Mary Ann, you gotta correct me, it says I think this was supposed to say limited to up to 5% in coverage at 0.05 in FAR. In other words, they don't, just for doing something, they don't automatically get 5% and the 0.05. It's a negotiation.
Right,
So you cannot assume that it's 5%, it depends on what they're offering.
Yes, of course, and all I'm just saying is that whatever that number is, it's actually more than just, say, the 5% that you would get at the bottom end of 10 or 15% coverage. If they keep the building and they get that bonus, 5% bonus, you're looking at altogether 44% coverage of that lot. I'm not counting the exemption that the historical building gets. That is huge by Irvington standards. Thank you.
Anybody
Larry has somebody on.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah,
You have two there.
online.
Hi. Igor Gallen, Cantonment Strawberry. One sec, can you hear me?
Oh my God.
Hello? Okay. So,
We can hear you.
just want to point out that the little park, so-called park for public benefit, at the moment is neither public nor benefit, because the public can really not access it. And the benefit is minimal because the size of this park is insult to human intelligence. Thank you very much.
Okay. Who's next?
I have one more. Hold on. Walter Montgomery.
Okay.
Hi, it's Walter Montgomery. Are you ready for me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, hi, it's Walter Montgomery. I'm a resident with my wife of Strawberry Lane for the last 8 years of our 38 in Irvington. We live right across from the development and we're very familiar with the Strawberry Lane and its usage, including down at the corner of Broadway. But I just like to quickly emphasize, since I think I have 3 minutes, I think John said that I come at this from, the perspective of not just a resident here, but I was on the planning board for several years, I think 7 years, something like that. I've been chair up at Abbott House, which is at the top of Strawberry Lane, for the last 5 years. And I've been on something for the last 8 years called the Traffic Calming Committee, which has dealt with pedestrian and safety issues. And one of our biggest concerns has been Broadway at Strawberry Lane and elsewhere. So my comments come from that kind of perspective, from those elements of my background. And everything I'm saying is related to what I think is the core question, and that is this little park that's proposed a true public benefit? One consideration is that it's not at all clear who would be actually using this, or would there be any significant number of people using it. I think it's dubious because right now, by our count, there may be 4 families on Strawberry Lane, and that might be a slight exaggeration, who have used it for dog walking. And by the way, right now there's a new sign on the property that says no trespassing. That is brand new, and so we assume that dog walking over there right now is verboten. In any event, who would actually use it? Strawberry Lane residents, not very many, to say the least. If more people come from outside Strawberry Lane, that's going to add to traffic and parking concerns, and people ought not be parking on Strawberry Lane, ought not rely on that. Some people do from time to time, episodically, but it's not a good area to have significant parking, to say the least. It's simply too narrow. It has to accommodate a fair amount of traffic right now for Abbott House and for Max and the property across the street from us, as well as the few residents who live here. So I assume, therefore, that if people were to use it significantly, many would come from the actual development itself. It is doubtful that many people will come from elsewhere, and if they do, there would be, as I said, a safety consideration at least. And already that intersection is dangerous to pedestrians and to cars. And for years we've talked, as Larry knows, about the possibility of having DOT put in a crosswalk there. That has not happened. We understand that getting that done, we've been told repeatedly, is very, very difficult. But maybe it will get done. I hope it does. But to go ahead with this project on the assumption we're going to have a crosswalk there in the near future seems to me to be close to quixotic. I hope it's not. In any event, you'll have a crosswalk going across 4 different lanes of Broadway, and that still is a safety issue, especially for children. So in any event, for a variety of reasons, I don't see how this is likely to be something of significant public benefit. And if it is used, it's going to be something that poses added safety concerns to an area that already is dangerous, purely and simply. I hope that people involved with the project have actually tried to exit and enter Strawberry Lane by car, to walk on Strawberry Lane at different times of the day. It is not a particularly safe place. It's not safe at all. It is a tricky place to be. So please consider all of these all these comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. else?
One more.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
If you're ready.
Yeah. No.
Well, I mean, they have their hand up, so.
Hello?
They got it.
Yeah, you're notified.
All right.
Okay.
Well, that's it.
Hi there, Rich Levine, North Broadway. So just a couple of questions. The little park, is there additional coverage that they would get or possibly get with that? Will that be approved before the DOT give approval on the crosswalk?
Most certainly. We'd have to make a decision in advance, yeah. Yeah, only because DOT isn't going to move very quickly. Actually, I shouldn't say that with certainty, but given the fact that we've tried for years, we, the village, to get various crosswalks and lights and things of that sort, we know how much time it takes. And
the redevelopment.
exactly. So they may be disinclined to do things in the near term. And you can imagine how long it's going to take to reconstruct Broadway for miles and miles.
Right, so it's a high chance that it wouldn't be approved,
Understood.
let's just say
And that's,
that.
I think, also what Walter Montgomery said.
Then it's really pretty inaccessible at all for anybody who wants to cross the road, because obviously it's a very dangerous road as it is, with no crosswalk would be a liability, and I live opposite, so I wouldn't be able to access it.
Park, so we're not encouraging people to drive there.
Exactly. And then the other question is, the park, I guess to you guys, Varma, is it then allowing you to walk all the way around the grounds or just in that corner?
So we haven't fenced in an area, so certainly people could walk around. What we're proposing with landscaping is having some kind of natural buffer to encourage people to stay in a certain area of the property.
Would there be signs to say no trespassing in other areas of the property if you're not?
I mean, that's something we could discuss further with the planning board, but there wouldn't be any impediment, any physical impediment preventing someone. But I don't know if we'd want to make the whole public access to the whole entire property.
Understood. It's people's homes.
But that setback is still a pretty steep hill, right?
In that corner is
From Broadway.
that area is flat. That's why we're proposing that.
Understood. He's making the point that they have to climb a pretty steep hill to go up.
Right, so there's sort of natural, right, correct.
Driveways, natural hill,
Yes.
natural boundaries.
So there's natural boundaries. We don't want to create some kind of fenced-in area.
Understood.
And if I allow people onto my front yard, do I get additional coverage for something I want to do?
You install a park,
Yeah, I'd put some nice flowers down and
you have to
let
ask the
them.
planning board.
Okay, so I've got to go through them first for that. Okay, thank you.
I mean, this is in the code, right? That's why they're here, because the code says that if you add a benefit, you can get this other benefit, the benefit of the extra coverage.
And that's not just a commercial space thing,
It's in
it's
the code for
anything.
this section of Broadway.
And by the way, to be fair, actually, you would know this better than I do. People come before the planning board and on various reports for where they can get approval, and sometimes the ZBA, to get additional coverage. Sometimes they've already built something in that spot, and they're not offering a public benefit. So I'm not sure that your last point is one that's going to be persuasive in this environment, but I understand the point you're trying to make.
Yeah, it's a very small area for a significant sized lot. To then call it a park is, yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Okay. It better be something that relates to us. Come on up. Nothing personal, but it's your second time around, and we have a lot of other stuff.
I don't know who that other guy was. I'm Peter McCallum from Blueberry Lane.
Got it.
All right. It's there was a reference to the affordable housing that's already on the menu. I was just wondering if they could clarify. The wording is 5 moderate income units and then 6 fair and affordable units. I don't understand. Does that mean that there are 11 total MIU or 60% classic affordable units, or is it that they're counting the 5 MIUs as part of the fair and affordable?
Yeah, you have to under the code. So we're counting, the 6 is based on the total units, so it does include the 5. So you get the benefit of rounding up.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that nobody leaves here thinking that they're talking about 11 units. It is actually just 6 units.
No, it's
no, no,
11 units. There's 5
That was my question.
affordable,
Okay.
and, no, 6 affordable.
6 affordable and 5
moderate
moderate
Okay.
income units.
Thank you. Sorry. All right, thank you. The other observation was just, the MFO actually does not allow parks as a permitted use. There are other districts in the village that do allow private parks, not this one. I just bring that up because I think it seems like that would be, if you did go in this direction, there would be even more paperwork involved than first thought. Thank you very
I'm not
much.
sure that's true, since we can make that decision. And we make the laws so that if we make an adjustment, it's effectively an amendment.
Right, there would be a ZBA, okay, all right, there wouldn't be a ZBA variance
I don't
required?
think so, no.
Okay.
It's still something we'll consider, but it's something that we have to make the decision on. I think that's it.
I have one, I
Oh, you got one?
have a repeat, but they may be together, but let me try one more time.
What?
We're not deciding on
Right. Yeah. Hello?
He's on mute, it looks like.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, hi. This is, my name is Asia Tracht. I couldn't connect on my cell phone, so I was the one raising hand and not answering.
Understood, you got 3
Yeah, okay.
minutes.
Yeah, I'll try to be short. I just wanted to bring to the attention of the board the fact that I've been following the applicant over the last several months, presenting their case to the planning. And I have to tell you, they have no public benefit in mind of any kind. The only reason this park is proposed now is not because they want to provide public benefit to the public. It is not. It is a pure monetary benefit that they can get more coverage and they can fit as many units as possible. That's all.
Wait, we understand that, and that is the way the law works, and it's our decision. We have to, the board has to make a judgment on that.
I understand. That's why all I'm saying, I'm bringing.
You can't put yourself into their shoes and decide what their motivation is. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're acting in their own economic interest. That's what they're supposed to do.
Right.
So-
Well, but I mean, I just think that calling it public benefit is a bit of a joke. Same
That
as
is the
calling the
truth.
nursery, that from 6 weeks to 5 years of age is school is another thing that the applicant has been using, but it's a different story. I live on Strawberry Lane. My backyard is bigger than this park. So let me state that there is no public benefit to the residents of the Strawberry Lane. And as many other people mentioned, the access to this mini park will be practically impossible for others of the Irvington. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That it?
Yes.
Okay. Since this was not a hearing, it's now closed.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Can I just make some closing points?
Yes, you
Just
can.
to respond?
Yes.
The benefit here is not solely the park. We understand, that the comments that we receive from the public, it's not just the park, it's also, and that's the big one, retaining the house, because you would not have to create that long access driveway all the way to the end of the site. You just wouldn't with a new building. So you're 5 to 6% in the coverage hole to begin with before you lay down 1 square foot of new development, and you don't have all those increased costs associated with retaining the house and creating that access. So again, it's twofold. It's the retention of the house that some in the community feel is a benefit, and the creation of this public amenity.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You coming here, and we're going to think about it, talk to our council, and we'll come back to you. Hopefully you'll think about what we suggested as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody else, for coming out. Okay. Approval of an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Greenberg. I know, I gotta
Give
wait
it 2
for.
seconds.
All right,
Sorry, but then you can roll.
all right.
Pretty short.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I know, I'm warm. Oh, I don't feel hot. No.
That's a little, you know.
I'm always hot though.
It's the number of
so-
people.
I know. No, I know, but then you can't, you hear them.
Yeah.
Because there's so much value.
Well, now I know several issues that will draw people, deer, dogs, and development.
I'm 40, well, this is, you weren't on the board when we first found that affordable. This was nothing.
Okay. Next up is approval of intermunicipal agreement with the town of Greenberg for the East Irvington Sewer District. Basically, East Irvington empties its sewage into our pipes, and then we get to handle it, and they pay us a fee.
That's it in a nutshell. And this is a renewal of an existing agreement that has probably been in place for a long time. So,
And I just want to see if I have any other notes on this. It's been expired for 3 years,
that too?
so they will presumably pay us for the back fee.
Yes,
Okay.
it is retroactive.
Straight into our coffers.
Yes. yeah.
Not really, it's been accrued, so it doesn't really, it
Well, it's still dollars.
just collects what's owed to us, that's all.
We discussed this at some budget meeting, I remember, so yeah.
Yeah.
How many years ago was that, Mitch?
I don't remember.
All right, so resolved to authorize the mayor to execute an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Greenberg regarding the town's use of the Irvington sewer system. Do I have that's my motion. Anybody want to second that?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Approval of agreement with Strom Port LLC, basically.
you missed one.
Oh, you want to tell the story?
You missed one, you missed the school district one.
I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. Approval of intermunicipal agreement with Irvington Union Free School District. This relates to the VIP program at the Nature Center. It is a short-term agreement, it looks like it ends on 6/25, and you can give 7 days notice to terminate at any time. Larry, you got anything else? What? Thank you.
Quick question about this.
Yes.
Who's going to be running this program now that CJ's not here?
So Maureen has identified a person, I can't tell you the person's name right off the top of my head, but she has identified someone that is going to be running this for her.
It's a part-time person or?
Yes.
But
Yep.
my understanding is that it's the school that sends the personnel to do it, but we set up the building and get things ready.
Right, we need what I would call a facilitator. I mean, CJ was probably more than a facilitator because he couldn't hold himself back.
Get engaged, yeah.
But we need someone to set the activities up, may have the materials ready.
When I was there, CJ ran the program.
I know, and the school understands that
Okay.
their assistants have to take on a bigger role here.
Okay.
But we'll see. It was either that or we cancel the program, and we
Right,
felt
no,
that it was
yes.
worth giving it a shot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Resolved to approve the intermunicipal agreement with the Irvington Union Free School District for the VIP program from October 8, 2024 through June 30, 2025, and to authorize the village administrator to execute the agreement. That's my motion. Anybody want a second?
Second.
All in favor? Yeah. You're not going to give me the page?
I can, 98.
If you
I know.
open your bookmarks, there's
I
bookmarks.
know, I know. All right.
You sound like a broken record. With the bookmarks.
I think he has a gaming book.
I think you need the tutorial.
Yeah, that's right.
Aaron
Mitch is-
painstakingly goes through
Mitch
it.
has spoiled me, so
I'm
I
gonna
don't
clue
know
you
what
in,
to
you
do.
need the tutorial.
Okay. Amendment of agreement with Strom Port, and I think I might have almost described it before, but basically we need a certified arborist when the village is acting with respect to certain trees, and they can give us a report at, I guess it's $150 a tree.
Yes. Yeah, and this is an existing contract we have with Stromhort, so the easiest thing was to add this as an amendment to that agreement. And this is actually directly connected to the fact that CJ isn't here, so we do need the services of a certified arborist.
Okay.
So this is a simple amendment.
So, let's see, resolve to amend the contract with Strong Board LLC to include arborist services for the Irvington Department of Public Works, tree inspections and written tree reports at a cost of $150 per tree. That's my motion. Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Appointment to the Theater Commission. My motion is resolved to appoint the following as a member of the Theater Commission with a term to expire December 2025. Jessica Aranella as a member. Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. A resignation, we are accepting a resignation from the Rec and Parks Advisory Committee. Motion is resolved to accept with regret the resignation of Janet Kovacs as a member of the Recreation and Parks Advisory Committee effective December 1, 2024, which happens to coincide when her term, that's not part of the resolution, but happens to coincide with the end of her term. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Subject to my ongoing
Objection.
objection to having to vote to accept.
Yes, understood.
Like you're.
You could abstain.
And I'll just mention I'm indebted to Janet. She was the first person that I recruited onto REC. I think Mike was the second, but Janet, and that was 16 or 17 years ago.
That's a lot.
So she's done her duty.
Yeah.
So,
Much appreciated.
next up is reports of board standing committees and officers. There's a couple of things I wanted to make comments on, but I want to make sure that I'm not stealing somebody else's fire. Anybody who say anything about Rocktoberfest? Okay, just, it was a great event. And as the leading skeptic up until the moment it actually occurred, and as a person who was recruited to sell entry tickets, despite the fact that Larry thought that was a bad idea, because everyone with an issue decided that was the moment to tell me about it. Nonetheless, I managed to sell the tickets.
Couldn't understand why everyone was standing in your line, not the other line. I had to explain that to you.
And they went to my wife for the beer tickets, because she seemed to be very liberal about that. In any case, it was a great event, notwithstanding the rain, and we're going to have, maybe this is the wrong term to use, but a postmortem to sort of discuss what worked, what didn't work, with all of the people who were involved, and we'll also get a report on the finances, and decide what we're doing for next year. So I won't be as difficult next year. And if anybody else wants to add anything, and the bands were great, and the food was great, so,
I want to add one thing.
yeah. Oh, and the bulldogs.
There were dogs in the park
Yes.
without leash.
Yes, yes, that is true. That is true.
Fiberglass, but.
Yes.
And who cleaned up after
Well,
them?
Mike was looking for leashes, right? You were looking for leashes, but
None in sight.
Let's see, and then I spent my weekend racing from one thing to another, all of which were fun. The first was, I think, Saturday night, the fire department inspection. And we had Andrea Stewart-Cousins there, Mary Jane Shimsky, and Paul Feiner, but most importantly, we had the entire fire department once the Mets game was decided, because nobody wanted to come out of the fire department building, and because the moment at which the game was tied was the moment everyone was supposed to come out and take their photographs. But eventually, everybody got out, and there were lots of folks there to witness not only the fire department itself, but also the trucks and so on. And then I think they had their dinner, which I did not attend, but I hope they had a good time. On Sunday, I went to the Greater Irvington Land Trust event, which occurred at the Nature Center. And that is where they gave out, I think, multiple awards for people who had applied for grants relating to care and maintenance of the woods. I'm going to describe it in general terms. I don't have the whole list, but hopefully I can get that. Maybe I'll put that in a future mayor's letter. But it was a very nice ceremony with a really good turnout, probably 50, 60 people there. And the last thing I did on Sunday, before racing home to see the Mets and the Giants, was to go to the Ardsley Park Property Owners Association meeting and answer questions on a whole range of issues. I think at one point they were probably glad to get rid of me because I was there for, I want to guess, 70, 80 minutes. And I could have gone on for a while, but they had other business to do. And they raised a couple issues that I'm sure they'll send us some letters, because I did ask them to do that, and not to rely on my memory for those things. But I was glad to be able to do it. That's sort of the end of my report, if you would.
Just one quick from Rec, from Maureen, to receive the latest news regarding recreation programs and special events, join the Recreation and Parks email list by following the email notification link at www.irvingtonnewyork.gov. That's it.
Okay.
Everyone should go buy tickets because the theater reopening is Saturday, November 9th. I have mine.
Done.
You do?
And my wife and one of my
Good.
sons.
Excellent. It's Saturday, November 9th. Lenny Marcus is the headliner. It's a comedy show. He was the first comedy show when we started doing comedy shows that I produced back in 2017.
Oh, wow.
So the commission thought it would be appropriate to have him. Also, Vera Eisenberg from NPR is the MC that night, and there's two other really good comics, one of which also played, not the same night he did, but one of the later shows in 2018, I think it was. So it's definitely a good night of comics, and come and open. There's also an open house. Is it that morning or is it the day before?
It's October, open house is October 26th.
October 26th, so you for 2 hours, right, 2 to 4, I think.
Yeah.
I think Miyuki is performing, and there were tours of the theater and things like that, so everyone should really come down to see the beautiful reopening of the theater. Lots of events at the library for the rest of the week. There are movies, there are music concerts and stuff. If you're not on their mailing list, you should be. And it's not strictly my liaison, but the Halloween bands are back. There was, I think, 12 this year.
Great. Wow.
I was a little confused because it was 12 and then 11 and then 12. So let's just say there were between 11 and 12 bands this year, in I believe 5 different locations. So I think the earliest band goes on at 5 and the last band goes on, I think, at 9 or 9:15 or something. So
That's great.
yeah, the posters will start going around the village and everything. So my band will be playing at 7 in front of Village Halls.
Prime time.
We worked our way up.
Good for you.
3 years ago, we were on at 4:30, I think.
Yeah, right.
How do you get more kids?
Okay, so from the Green Policy Task Force, they continue their presence in the Irvington Farmers Market. They're continuing to field multiple inquiries from Irvington residents wanting curbside food scrap pickup. We are encouraged by some vendors, I'm just reading their report, switching partially to compostable packaging, but would like to explore the possibility of a resolution requiring compostable packaging. I'm sure that will come before us. Halsey Pond, the GPTF and residents note that the amount of fishing line hooks and other related trash discarded in and around Halsey Pond continues to grow. Non-native invasives are particularly dense west of Halsey Pond. Applications to lawns around Legends Hollow are believed to be the main source of contamination to Halsey Pond. The mayor's honor pledge, all 3 actions have been completed and language, I guess has been sent to you, Larry, so for submission. The deadline is December, so I guess they're early.
Yep. We're on it.
They're right on it. The GPTF presented at the Global Irvington Land Trust Celebration on October 6th at the O'Hare Nature Center. The Green Policy Task Force is grateful for the wonderful opportunity that enabled us to help educate the public about the benefits of planting local eco, I don't know why my thing is so small, I couldn't see it, just make it bigger. Ecotypes and of removal of non-native invasive species to generate biodiversity. And thanks to the GILT grant, we can keep nurturing local pollinators and other wildlife by providing them with healthy nutrition and habitat on the Rock Road Aqueduct. The Clean Energy Communities Committee has been awarded an additional $250,000 for their submission of tasks amounting to more than 9,000 points. This brings the total funds to more than $600,000 from this program, which is amazing. Our climate vulnerability assessment was shared with the community at the last climate talk, and you can have a link. Actually, I think irvingtongreen.org, they have a great website actually for people to look at all the stuff that GPTF does. Their next climate talk is on November 6th, and it's going to feature resident Amy Sith. Is that why you're here? Just kidding. Just kidding. Yeah. I'm like, wow, that's great. Founder of Made Safe will focus on toxins in our home and environment, including what we use on our lawns. That's from the Green Policy Task Force. And I have an update from Craig.
That's gonna be a whole mission of possible self-destruct.
You see what happened? It was like, okay. Okay, so from the Brett Nielsen and DPW, they painted the exterior of DPW locker room and the superintendent's office. They planted 5 trees on Main Street tree wells. They planted 5 street trees. Had fabricated and currently being painted by DPW Maintenance Department, tree pit at Village Hall, maintained the drain at Workplace, sold vehicles on Go Deals, DPW Complex Emissions Reduction Project has commenced. Yale Point Parking Lot Project has commenced. Procured all materials for Harriman Cyrus Road drainage, that's gonna commence tomorrow. Repaired 3 catch basins at Legend Hollow, repaired the curb at 46 Riverview Road, and repaired the curb at 42 Butterwood Lane East. So they continue to be as busy as possible. And then my last update is that the Bulldog auction ended yesterday, and we raised over $17,000 on that auction, so that was pretty cool.
It's great. Great, congratulations, and you did a lot of hard work there.
Lots of carrying of Bulldogs. Lots of difficulty.
Okay, village administrative report.
Just 2 updates. One is that we've been meeting with the consultants that were hired for the food scrap study. You brought food scraps up in your report. The multi-village effort to study that is underway, and we met most recently with consultants and our local Irvington team. They wanted to meet with our DPW and get an understanding of what our facilities are like and the collection area for food scraps. So we did meet with them, and that's ongoing, but still there's more time on that project to go. I did mention to Charlotte particularly that the other stakeholders will be invited to these meetings going forward at some point. I mean, we're just waiting for the consultants to give us the high sign on that. And the other is that we're meeting this Friday with New York State DOT, assuming that the purpose of the meeting is to go over their plans specifically for Irvington and to get some feedback from us. Yes, exactly.
And did you have my feedback?
Yes, and actually, I actually went, yes, the state has your feedback actually, or will. Andy Rassing is collecting all that for the great TVCs.
The village clerk treasurer's report.
The only report I have is that we received the draft financials from the auditors. So now I just have to do the management discussion piece. So I'm hoping by the end of the month, we should have a finalized audit report.
But everything was positive.
Yes, yeah.
Just give me more than a day to look at the MD&A.
Oh, yes.
Village attorney's report.
I don't have any report. I just wanted to talk to the board briefly about something, but it looks like people are here for the executive session. Are these people here for executive session? Oh, no,
Yeah, we
okay.
do have an executive session, but if there's something.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Okay.
So that's gonna, in exec session.
No.
No, advice of counsel.
You can
Yeah,
go,
no,
you can
it's
go
fine.
to
That-
exec
that's fine.
session, but she'll preempt it. Well,
That's fine,
for her.
that's fine, that's fine, that's fine.
Yep.
Okay,
3
next up is public comment. Anybody else want to say anything?
Please identify yourself.
Yes.
Hi, David Zweibel. I just wanted to commend you guys for, with the Varma Development people, pushing for affordable housing, or more affordable housing as the whatever, if we give them anything. So thank you very much for that. The other quick question is, I was a little confused by a last announcement about the parking lot below Field Point owned by the town and work being done on that. And
Did you see the email today?
yeah, and I was confused with what is the relationship between the town and the Toll Brothers doing the work?
Here's the net of it. Toll Brothers needed to eliminate two of our multiple spots on Broadway. And I guess the planning board said to them, if you're gonna do that, you gotta solve the problem elsewhere. We needed to expand, or wanted to expand the Field Point lot. They were willing to pay for it. So we said, let's do it. And we've already got a grant pending with Westchester County to cover the electric charges we want to put in there. We will probably have parallel parking on both sides by the time that is done. And we have a planting plan that will go in and will restore the plants that have been cleared out. The reason that email went out is we were starting to get emails from people going, oh my God, what's happening? So that was an effort to try to.
Okay, so the only quid pro quo was they were eliminating two spots on the street.
Correct.
And in exchange for.
Was it two?
It was more than
Could
two.
have been three.
Yeah, it was more than
Yeah.
two, but it was the DOT that required Toll
Them to do
Brothers
that. To do it
to
for
eliminate
Thank
those
you.
spaces.
Sorry.
Because of the sightlines getting in and out of their driveway at their
Right.
current development at 30 South Broadway. So the planning board, in their wisdom, said, okay, if you're going to be forced to eliminate these spaces on a public street here, Broadway, then let's replace them by expanding them in the Field Point lot. And it's actually more than we're getting more spaces net than what was eliminated on Broadway.
Terrific, thank
Always
you.
good to have people who can correct me when
Uh,
I
Well,
go
I don't know
astray.
the exact numbers, but just to
Yeah.
clarify why, and that's why a private company is doing the work for us that is developing a property across the street. That's how that happened. It was a requirement of our planning board.
Okay.
A request and turned into a requirement.
Terrific. By the way, just like on that little subject, it is very easy to understand what's going on with the BOT, the way the agenda comes up on the website. It is not so easy to understand what's going on with the planning board on their links on the website. You can't just click and get all of the
The
documents.
materials behind it, yeah.
So I would hope that we could maybe improve that.
I think it's under development. We're in transition between two different platforms. So I think it'll be improved, but still in all, they do have a lot more backup
Yeah.
information than we have on our meetings. So it's a little easy for us to sit back and say, here's all the
You
information.
see me paging through documents, imagine
Yeah.
what other people
With
have to
them,
deal
they
with
could
if
have
they
hundreds of
can't.
pages in any one submission, so it's a little more difficult.
Is there a report of what conclusions they have come to after each meeting?
There's minutes.
Just the minutes? Okay. Okay, thank
And
you.
and usually you hear them kind of dictating it on the fly, doesn't, they'll say,
Well, I do what
Yeah.
concludes the matter is the resolution.
Right,
I do the
right.
resolutions, they're at the beginning of the meeting and they're in the minutes.
Okay. So those resolutions are in the minutes that are published
Yeah, so
pre to the
just,
next meeting.
right, well, yeah, usually, because for
We
instance,
wait
I
till they're
just,
approved, yeah.
yeah, in October, the next meeting, they'll approve the September and the October minutes.
Okay,
And then-
all right.
you guys are busy.
We're done. I motion to go to executive session.
Any other comment?
Oh, sorry.
Can I make?
Yeah.
Hi, Jeff Glick, from the Taxpayers for Irvington's Future Group. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry I came in late because I got waylaid, but I did mention, and I had mentioned to the mayor that I had invited one of the chairs of the Facilities Committee to give an informal update to the citizens group on the 15th, and the mayor had said that was fine. It was just
Yeah.
an informal conversation, so.
They're free to talk to anybody they like, for that
Yeah.
matter. I mean,
Thank you. So I hope we can be helpful in moving it along as you guys consider. I think you have a working session coming up.
Great,
Okay, thank you very much.
thank you. All right, now I'm making a motion to go to executive session regarding personnel matter. All right, all in favor? Okay.
Are we moving or are we staying here?